slash cemetery director, and I worked there for a couple of years. And then I was given a great opportunity at Greenwood Union in Rye. I've been there since 2010. It's a very special place. There's a lot of community feeling there. The cemetery itself is a very rural looking cemetery with trees and rolling hills and streams. It's very well kept. Our guys do a tremendous job keeping it up to the standards that people expect, and the community embraces it, and it's a place of peace and comfort. It really is, and we hear that from a lot of people. It's a place that they want to be at, even though it's a place they don't want to be at. If you have to choose a place, we hear from a lot of people that they really enjoy the grounds and the surroundings, and just the whole general, the way that the cemetery is kept and how people are treated when they're there.
It is like picturesque, postcard feel. I mean, I actually remember speaking to you and having a deer maybe like 10 feet from us, nibbling on someone's flowers, sadly, but still, I mean, it was like it's a very peaceful, it's absolutely beautiful, and not enough can be said for it. There's such an amazing feel there. Admittedly, that's where my family has chosen to have plots.
Not for many years, though.
Mm-hmm.
Not for many years.
No, of course not for many years, nor do I want to know where they are. But there is something different about what you have compared to what other cemeteries offer. And I want to talk about something that really comes up in the conversation when you and I both know cremation is on the rise. It's just becoming more commonly selected. What people might not often think of when they hear cremation is go that next step. Well, what are you going to do with the remains? A cemetery serves a key purpose. It gives you a place to go to bring a flower to someone, to sit and honor an anniversary, a birthday. It gives you a place to go to honor that spirit, something tangible, something physical. You don't have to deprive yourself of that just because you've cremated someone. You can still have that place to bring the flower, put a flag up, if it was a veteran on Memorial Day. Talk about that. Do you find that people often don't realize that that's an option they have?
I think most people don't realize that, and cremation is increasing, throughout the world, as in our area. And people say to me, "Oh, you're in the cemetery business. Aren't you afraid of cremation? Taking away the business and so forth in the future?" Cremation isn't a concern for cemeteries in the fact that we're not against cremation or anything like that. But we just want people to understand that when somebody is cremated, they should be buried in a dignified manner, and it shouldn't be held on the shelf in the bedroom, or scattered in different places. We feel that it's important that people have a place, like you said, to go, to visit, to memorialize. The memorialization, we feel, is very important. If you take a walk around the cemetery and you see what people write on headstones, that's the history of a life well lived.
That tells a story.
It's a big story, and a lot of people don't realize that. And one of the things that we feel with the cremation burials is why it's so important is the cemetery offers a non-structured bereavement group in a lot of ways. And
yes. Explain what you mean by that.
Okay.
You're the one who kind of brought that to my attention, and I never realized it, and I think it's an amazing source of comfort. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's everybody that's in the cemetery has experienced a loss, and people, obviously don't go to visit the cemetery in a happy mood, and there are people that when they suffer a loss of a loved one, they're not able to communicate with other people, they don't want to communicate with other people. Bereaved groups are phenomenal, but not everybody is fit to go to a structured bereavement group. But what we found in our cemetery, and this is probably not just our cemetery, this is in cemeteries in general, people that come to visit are already in a sad emotional state along with everybody else that's there. So if somebody's sitting there with having lost somebody and they're upset, and I've had people say to me, well, I can sit in my bedroom and think about my loved one and pray to my loved one. Absolutely. But to go to a place where you can memorialize with other people, and other people are there, so you can be sitting there grieving, and the person next to you may have a similar loss. It might be a different loss, but it's still a loss. And
you're bonded by circumstance once you're there.
Yes, and then you're able, people start to communicate. And I know we have a group that has become very close to each other, and we're kind of proud of it. Maybe proud's not the right word, but we're happy that we're able to provide the comfort or the opportunity for the comfort for people. That there's a group that has gotten so close that they will actually take care of each other's flowers when they're away. They'll water them. They'll look out for each other. They'll be in touch with them, and they have the opportunity to talk to each other, cry, hug, without being around maybe other people that making them feel uncomfortable.
Well, other people that aren't in the same or similar circumstance to them.
Correct.
No, that's very true. And for some people, it's such a part of the process. I know my mother. My mother always planted flowers at the grave of her grandparents, her aunts, and her parents, and that was part of her bereavement. And she still does it today. I mean, that's always, when springtime comes and she plants flowers at home, she goes there. There are people who they can't bring themselves to go.
Right.
It's not a measure of their love for somebody, but there's people that find such tremendous comfort in it. But I personally, I don't know if it's just, me speaking from my professional perspective, it gives you something tangible. It gives you some sense of they're still there. I mean, yes, we know that, the death removes the physical, but the spirit is there, the love, the bonds, the emotions are still there. But the cemetery does provide that something tangible. When you go there, that's where mom or dad or your spouse, that's where they are. And there is a comfort to be sought in that. However, what you do hear very commonly, and this is another reason why Greenwood is very unique, to have a cemetery you need space.
Yes.
And space is very limited. I mean, let's look around. I mean, nothing, every parcel of land is ripe for development.
Right.
At Greenwood, not only do you have space, but you have created more space.
Yes.
So there is tremendous opportunity for anyone who has even remotely considered looking for their plot. They have it with you. You're only about, I'm going to say, 10 minutes from where we're sitting right now in studio, immediately off 95. I can wave to you.
Yeah, Playland Parkway.
Drive by. Yes, right off Playland Parkway. 10-minute drive. And you have selections, but you also have something new. And tell us about both.
Yes, we're very happy. We just completed a memorial garden, which is going to consist of above ground burial spaces for caskets and for cremated remains. There's 128 crypts, which provide for full body casket burials, and 480 some odd cremation options for people to memorialize their loved ones that are cremated. We've never had that in the past. It was an option or a choice that was never provided. It's been of great interest. Everybody that drives through asks about it, asks what it is, asks what it means, why haven't we never done that before. So it's moving forward into a new age where there's a lot of people that just don't want to be buried in the ground. And for personal choices or preferences, whatever, they want to be above ground. And now we're able to offer that option for those people. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm thinking of a visual.
Okay, so there you go, visual, very nice. Very nice.
I'll be like the Vanna White of your
okay.
store.
Just like a buy a vial.
Would you like to buy a crypt? This is the picture of what we have. I don't know which camera I'm looking into. And this is what Bill's referring to. And it's considered an indoor-outdoor, correct?
It's all outdoor. It's covered. There's an area that's covered.
But there's an area
underneath a covering, but there's no, you're not walking into any doors.
Okay.
No,
which also I think enhances there's just a beautiful theme walking through your cemetery. It's not overpowered with huge monuments.
Yeah.
Everything is tastefully done. You have requirements there. This just ties in so perfectly. Some people may have never considered the possibility of an above ground burial. In your years of experience, when do you find that subject comes up, or what are kind of the commonalities that tie people who want the above ground?
The above ground, from my experience, seem to be people that are more into the pre-planning, that have thought about it ahead of time.
Okay.
It's not necessarily a death occurs. That does happen. But from my experience, when there's people are looking at above ground, they've already thought about this. ahead of time that I don't want to go in the ground, so
Right.
we have to figure out how we're
Right.
going to do this and what we're going to do. But not everybody. I mean, everybody's different. But I think most of the people that are looking at choosing mausoleum, a private mausoleum, private house type of thing,
Mhm.
or the community mausoleums, are people that do plan somewhat ahead and know that that's what they want. They don't want to be in the ground, and that they want to be above ground. Again, that's usually not something that happens when somebody dies. Somebody's really thought about that ahead of time.
Let's talk a bit about the pre-planning aspect. I'm a huge advocate of planning ahead. That's why we're here on air today. That's why you're part of Coming of Age magazine,
Yep.
which is so happy that Greenwood has joined us with that. It's always good to have a plan. But the problem is we're talking about things that no one wants to think about, and we tend to put off. So what happens is now, when the crisis is set in, if a family calls us at the funeral home, one of our first questions are, if it's a burial, do you have a cemetery plot? If you've waited for that decision, you are now going to a cemetery, you are making a decision laboring under grief, sadness, stress. You have a very limited window in which to decide this, and you probably have so many more options that if you had more time or more mental capacity, you could have maybe picked something that was a better fit for your family. How do you drive that message home, though, that it's okay it's okay to look for your cemetery plot? It doesn't mean anything that you're going to look for your cemetery plot, but you should do it.
It's very, very difficult. The question that I always have is, people buy life insurance, and so when you're buying life insurance, you're realizing that you're going to die. I mean, you're doing it to prepare your family, to help your family out. In pre-planning a funeral or thinking about it, that's another step in helping your family and taking care of your family. We hear all the time people come in and they'll be like, I wish my parents had done this. I wish somebody had told me that mom or dad wanted this or wanted that. It makes it really, really difficult for us, obviously for the family, but for us in the cemetery, trying to help them when they'll be arguing or disagreeing in front of us as to what mom or dad wanted.
Absolutely.
And
three
then
kids, 4 opinions.
And then you're talking about having, maybe one afternoon to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a forever decision. And, talking about, one of the things that I try to tell people is, even if you do not go through with it and buy it or purchase it or plan, at least talk to your family about what your wishes are going to be. We've had situations where somebody said, well, mom said she wanted to be cremated.
Right.
No, she didn't. She told me she didn't want to be cremated. Now mom has died. Who makes that decision?
Absolutely.
And, those things to at least be talked about ahead of time. We tell people, most people don't want to hear it. Most people look at it as, many people look at it as a sales ploy. We're trying to sell stuff. We just try to educate people and say, listen, you need to think about these things, because at some point you're going to have to do it. And from my experience, when most people do what we call pre-planning,
Mm-hmm.
it's really not pre-planning. Somebody is either sick or somebody has died, and now they say, oh, we should get a plot in your mom or dad or whatever it's going to be. So then they start thinking about it a little bit. But the financial aspects are also part of this too.
Yeah.
It's not an inexpensive item, and it's not a nice item. If you have some money, you're thinking of a vacation, you're thinking of a car, you're thinking of paying your bills. You're not thinking of going out and buying a cemetery plot.
Right.
So that makes it really, really difficult. But, we just hope that we just get the word out to people that do pre-plan, and that they can spread the word to how important it is to other people. That's kind of what we hope for.
Bill, in recent years, have you seen any shift in who's coming into pre-plan? Do you see people come in their 50s, as young as their 40s and 50s? Or is it still pretty much, or do you see just more pre-planning in general, regardless of the age?
To me personally, from what we see, it's more older people doing the pre-planning, and a lot of it we hear is, we don't want to leave it up to our kids.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that a lot of people joke about is they say they don't trust their kids, that they'll make the right choices and pick
Did my
what
dad
they
say
want.
that to you
No,
about me?
your dad
Did he
not,
say that?
No, I cannot go on honestly and say
We're
that.
on air now.
On air, when we go off the air, we can talk about that. But that's what a lot of older people come in because they realize, and they'll say, I don't want to leave this to my kids. We had to deal with this. I had to deal with something.
But
I
their
don't want
own
my
parent,
kids,
right?
Yeah,
right.
I don't want my kids to have to worry about that or deal with that. I wouldn't say that we're trying to get more younger people to understand that it's important to think about this and to plan. But again, I think people just, the financial or the economic aspects of it make it difficult. I think a lot of people agree you should think about it, but to go forward and to actually, follow through on it and purchase something.
It's a different thing.
And I think when people buy something, that's a real commitment. Like if you buy like life insurance, you're buying life insurance. You buy a plot, wow, I'm going to die. This is where I'm going. And I think that's another reason why people don't want to do it.
Yeah, and it's all understandable. I mean, again, like we say, people don't want to plan ahead, and it's totally logical and rational to understand why. But I think what Bill is doing and what everything we talked about here, we just want to stop and make you think, and you have to think about that. What if you should pass and you don't have this in place? And what if you should pass in an untimely or sudden manner, and now your family is dealing with shock and grief and overwhelming emotion? It's just not the time to make any decision, even including, what you want to eat. It's just not a time to think clearly. I want to talk about some more of the distinct features of Greenwood Union, and again, just remind people here in Greenwich, and many people from Greenwich have selected Greenwood Union, but it is a real viable, close, and beautiful option. But let's talk about the fact that it's a non-sectarian, non-denominational cemetery. So nowadays, you do see a lot of interfaith marriages.
Yes.
And a cemetery such as Greenwood is an even better option because, you have a Catholic wife, a Jewish husband. That has long presented a dilemma of where do you get buried?
And we get a lot of questions about that.
Go ahead. What are they asking?
Well, it's just what you said. My husband's Jewish, I'm Catholic. When I don't believe in, or I don't follow religion, but my husband is this. So that's a major point that we try to drive across, is that we bury people of all faiths. This day and age of, all kinds of, they said, interfaith marriages or whatever beliefs that people have. Back in the olden days, if you were Catholic, you had to be buried in a Catholic cemetery, and you had to be married to a Catholic, and that was it. There was no choice. That has changed a lot. That offers us a lot of opportunity to kind of reach out, and a lot of people love that idea.
Because we're all going to the same place anyway, aren't we?
Well, there was a quick story. There was a woman about a year ago had come in, and she was asking me all these questions. She was very, very concerned that it was not a religious cemetery. I don't know what her affiliation was or was not, but she just wanted to make sure that it was not a religious cemetery. I said, there's people of various faiths buried here, but it is not a religious cemetery.
Right.
And she kept asking and kept asking and kept asking, and finally I just said, why is it so important to you? And she said, well, I'm not religious, but I guess it's okay, because when you buy a house, you don't check the religion of your neighbors. And she says, well, if I live next to people, I can be buried next to people, of different faiths.
That's very true.
And it was interesting because I'd never heard that rationale on something like that. And, it kind of made us think that, as I'll say people of God, even though maybe people are not of religions, we're all supposed to coexist, and we're all supposed to get along. And, do that in living and do that in death. There shouldn't be any discrimination into any level of living or at the death part. So
it's very true. There's absolutely no discrimination at Greenwood, but it's a nice concept. And then the other side of that, to offer some comfort and consolation to the Catholics who were saying, it's not consecrated ground. When you're at the committal of a Roman Catholic person, there is a priest at the committal site who blesses the ground, so that grave does become consecrated ground.
Absolutely.
So even though it's not a religious cemetery per se, you're still being buried as a Catholic in holy ground as they bless that grave. So you kind of we just took care of both. The non-believers and the believers. You're all okay at Greenwood Union.
Let's hope so.
Another thing I think is very nice about Greenwood Union, there are no gates to come into the cemetery.
Yes.
It's not that, it's locked, it's 4 o'clock, and you're putting the padlock on the gate. If you have a beautiful summer evening where the sun sets at, 8 o'clock, and you wanted to go, you could be there. It's not a cemetery where, you don't see You don't see people picnicking. You don't see anything there going on that's distasteful. But it's just a place of quiet reflection. It's so well manicured and maintained. There's little brooks and bridges.
Lots of wildlife.
Lots of wild. Yeah, there was even a hawk one day
Yeah.
following the deer,
Yes,
the deer and the
yes,
hawk.
yes,
You
yes.
ran away from me on
That's
that.
right.
And
So I was
left me with
afraid.
the hawk.
I was afraid.
Some coyote
Wasn't in the
there.
contract.
Mine neither. I
Yeah.
stopped for hawks. But it's just a beautiful place. And it's a residential neighborhood. Even though we say it's off of 95 and Playland Parkway, it backs up to a
Yes.
residential neighborhood. And it coexists beautifully in the middle of that beautiful residential neighborhood. It's nothing tacky or ornery about it. It's just simply
No,
beautiful.
we're blessed with the natural landscape that we have.
Yes.
And two of the things that we hear a lot from people are that about being open all the time. That's people really appreciate being able to come maybe at 8 o'clock in July to visit. Where a lot of
Or even
places-
like 7:30 in the morning, on
yes,
your way to work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of places you can't visit somebody during the week because the gates close at 4:30. If you work, you can't get to that
Yes.
cemetery or whatever. So we hear that a lot from people, that they really get like eye opened up. I mean, I can come at any time. Well, we don't want you coming at 2 in the morning, but technically,
I'm glad we actually clarified that. Yes,
we don't
want you there
encourage
in
we don't
2 a.m.
encourage that. But it is there, and I have had people say that they've come in early in the morning to have coffee with their loved one before they went to work, and so being able to offer that is a great thing. And the other thing that a lot of people are surprised about is how big the cemetery is.
Yes.
They drive by North Street and they think it's an old cemetery with no land left for development, and it's not that deep. And then once we start showing people around, it just they're amazed at how far it goes back and how much land how much availability we still have. So
You do, and that's key, because I don't know any place actually in this vicinity where you have that many selection options for ground burial. And with the beautiful addition of the above ground space, 128. There are some that have been purchased already. I'm
correct.
assuming,
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's been very well received so far.
It certainly has. And once again, this is just an example. I know it's hard to see from here, but it's a great monument. Where is that monument in the cemetery? This guy right here.
Close to where the office is. Between.
So you mean I've overlooked that every time?
No, it's if you go into where like the African American cemetery is, which is on our property. We're not associated with that, but we offer access to it. As you would go towards that area, that's where the statue would be. You could actually see that from 95.
Yeah, I guess I gotta open my eyes.
Open your eyes, but pay attention to the road. Don't worry about looking at the statue.
Right, exactly. Bill Lane, how can anybody watching or listening, how can they get in touch with you?
Please, any questions, our phone number is 914-967-0095. We have a website, which is www.greenwoodunion.org. We have a Facebook page. We have, our website, the phone. Please, any question, anybody wants to come by and look or get any information, the office is open till 8:30 to 4:30 during the week, and Saturday mornings somebody's in the office to answer questions, and email is also available through the website. So anything that we can help people with, and even if it regards not necessarily just the cemetery part, we have helped people with just death questions in general and burial options and thoughts. So anything, even if it's not our cemetery, we can try to help.
And keep in mind quickly too, getting back to married parties, if one wants burial, one wants cremation, there's a lot of different options. So the only way to know your options is to call. Love the brochure. Our cemetery is a place of eternal rest, a sacred place for quiet reflection, and an important decision, just to paraphrase. Very true. Bill Lane, Greenwood Union Cemetery, right over the border in Greenwich in Rye, New York, about 10 minutes from here. If this has been on your mind at all, even as a passing thought, give them a call, 914-967-0095. And this is Jen Graziano thanking you for taking the time to listen as we took the time to talk. Have a great day, Greenwich. Bye-bye.